Poor bastard! There's nothing left.
Except for the poets they didn't like, I guess.
The two men inspected the decaying mess with curiosity and dread. The only way they knew it could have been a man at all was because the ruined wagon was lined with a collection of male garments, each dyed a shade of brown, burgundy, or beige. A peasant's cloth. Perhaps he was a lowly merchant or a wanderer. Whoever he was, all that remained was the site of a massacre. One of the men was kneeling and peered a little too close and retched his lunch into the gully. It was hard for Seb to look past the gaping hole where the man's head used to be. The jugular had been torn out, leaving the muscles and tendons nothing more than shredded strips. The head itself was smashed, sharing the likeness of a rotted fruit, and it was strewn a good 5 to 6 feet away from the rest of the remains. His chest cavity was crushed, with its contents spilling out from his back into the swamp water. The impact had been so strong that it pushed the lungs and intestines out through the ribs and skin. Only one arm remained relatively intact. The other had been ravenously gnawed away by bestial jaws and had a sizable chunk of the victim's side. What was most interesting were the purple and black stains that had spread along the wounds, accompanied with various puncture marks. The cause must have been thick fangs or claws. The skin coloration was evidence of some kind of poisoning. His innards were a disgusting pale green. It produced a horrendous odour, even for a corpse. Seb assessed the scene with a neutral expression. Such a grisly sight. It must have truly been a chaotic creature who was responsible. The drowned land could well be home to a beast capable of such atrocity. There was something alien and untamed about this land. Seb combed through all the beasts he knew, but struggled to find a feasible culprit based on this evidence. Any of the beasts he could consider responsible were not native to the drowned land.
Any idea what could have done this?
Asked the retching man to his companion, once he had gained his composure. The other man, wearing a dark blue-grey chaperon, turned to look at him with a shrug.
"Take your pick," he replied. "Swamp worms, grolls, malvigors, some other brute, what of it? This place, it has as many beasts here capable of turning you to pulp as bloody mosquitoes. Could even have been some old hermit and his hounds that had a bit too much fun."
They exchanged a sadistic snigger, perhaps as a way to process the scene. Seb just continued to watch from his mount. He was familiar with men who thought they knew better. They had no respect for this world, the beasts or the dead. Sad to think how accustomed I am to such talk. They'll just end up being devoured by the very beasts they mock. Still, there's no reason for anyone to disrespect the dead, especially when they remain as such a mutilated mess. Whatever beast did this is unlike any other I've encountered before. It was painfully clear that these men really had no clue about how any of the beasts in their homeland hunted. It was a wonder that they were travelling this far from the settlements without an armed escort or a guide. Even those who are now grown never learnt not to play with fire, or they simply enjoyed toying with the risk.
"Might as well see if there's anything he won't be needing,"
said the hatless man, suddenly unfazed by the foul stench as he leapt onto the wagon. He wasted no time to begin pilfering through the contents. The wreckage looked days old, so it was unlikely he'd find anything valuable. Seb looked on, and Chaperon joined in before long, searching through the containers on the wagon's rear. Seb held his expression, but his gut tightened as the worst side of man played out before him. They were more like vultures, picking at the carrion despite the meat having wasted away days before. Men like these ones wouldn't survive in the south, not because of the beasts, but because Seb's countrymen were malcontent with such actions. The drowned land was indeed a disturbing realm. He ushered Reinhardt onward, passing the two men close by. They paused, turning to focus on his imposing figure.
"Best you continue on,"
Seb said.
"Such creatures tend to return and spoil themselves on whatever scavengers they find picking at the scraps."
He narrowed his eyes and continued down the road, leaving the two other men startled and scanning their surroundings with unease. They pillaged what they could and made their way down the road in the opposite direction. Seb glanced over his shoulder and wondered how far those two would get.